What's going on, everybody? I'm Two-Tone the Artist.
And I'm Mitch the Peach.
Welcome back to the Hills Are Silent podcast, where we chop it up about the video games of yesterday, today, and the future. Let's rumble. All right, Mitch. I know that you've been playing this game a lot. This game is non-stop. Don't know if you even can beat it. Tell me about Forza Horizon 5, my man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of games, and this one's kind of gotten in the way of me beating any actual linear story games that I've been trying to get through. Just because it is probably one of the better games on Xbox to play right now for a multitude of reasons. But Forza Horizon 5 is an open world racing game developed by Playground Games. It's published by Xbox Game Studios. So with that being said, I play it on Game Pass because any Xbox Game Studios game is on Game Pass day one. So that really prompted me to play the Forza series in general. Once that started happening, all those games would come over to Game Pass on day one. So this Forza Horizon in particular is based in a fictional representation of Mexico. And they always put it in some different region of the world, and this time it's Mexico. Forza Horizon 4, I believe, was England, which was pretty cool. But this is the 5th installment of the Horizon series and the 12th installment, which is crazy to think about, of the Forza series in general. So I think before I go into the game itself, because I know you're not as familiar with the Forza series, I think it's good to tell you and the audience the difference between Forza Horizon and Forza Motorsport, because those are two separate titles essentially, and they operate, the game wise, they operate a little bit differently. So Forza Horizon is more of that open world, basically open world festival style game. There's always a festival going on, and they really open up a world to you, where it's full of exploring and doing collectibles and finding races, and really just maneuvering around point to point, trying to, doing whatever the heck you want. So more open world setting. And then Forza Motorsport is actually developed by a different studio. It's developed by Turn 10 Studios. It's more about the racing itself. It's more about how fast you're going. It's not as much about the off-roading and the open world aspect that a Forza Horizon is, which I guess where the Horizon name comes from. So the Forza Motorsport is more pure racing, going fast, enclosed racetracks. Forza Horizon, you can end up, there's some of the times you can go, there's so many like off-road races where you're going through, big huge puddles and rainy terrain and all these different weather and whatnot. So that's kind of the difference between those two. Since they've come out with the Horizon games, I always lean toward the Horizon because they just create such beautiful worlds that are super open world and there's just so much to do within it. There's tons and tons and tons of content. And I'm going to go over kind of like a few of the things that I think are cool within the game, but there's a lot more that I'm not even going to mention because there's just so much to it. So there's 5 different types of races in the Forza Horizon world. There's road racing, there's dirt racing, there's cross-country racing, there's PR stunts, and then there's street racing. So the thing I like about that is there's all these different types of races, and each type of race that you could bring in, it really like makes you jump into a bunch of different types of cars. So you can't just use one car for every single race as you go along, because like you could go from doing a street race where there's like super sharp turns, you're racing through like a small city in Mexico, the whole race is like inner city, and you want to race more something that can turn really well, as opposed to another race which could be like a dirt road race where actually they let you race a Warthog. So a Warthog is one of the cars,
like from Halo Warthog?
Yes. Yeah, they actually have the Warthog in the game that you can play as, and I usually run that a lot in like the dirt races because it's it's an off-road vehicle in Halo, and they really make it an off-road vehicle in Forza Horizon.
That is awesome. I mean, I guess since they're both owned by Microsoft Studios, then it makes sense that they have the rights to do that.
Yep, exactly. And they even have car horns that are like the Halo theme song. It's like you honk
Oh,
your horn and it
nice.
starts doing the theme song.
So I got a couple questions.
Yeah.
First of all, the graphics on this game look
Ooh.
absolutely amazing. But some of my questions is how deep does the car customization go? Like, can you really get in and fine tune like every single part of your car?
Every part of your car if you want to. It gets extremely deep. And I'm not somebody who likes to do that. There are people who love to do that. And if you want to, you have every option available to you to do that. Like you can go through everything. You can turn a car that is not meant for like off-roading and turn it, and customize it to a point where it's got off-road tires and everything. All the specs are lining up so that you can run that car off-road now. So you can really mess with everything. But for me, which I think is cool, and what they do with the community, as someone who doesn't like going in and doing that, I really just want to race and, maybe do a little like color customization or something like that, cosmetic customization. They actually have community specs that you can just hit and download on your own. So if somebody already did some specs for a car or they already did some customization themselves, each car has their own grades. You can find a car and specs that match the race you want to run. So, for instance, like I like running, if I want a car that has better steering or better off road or better braking or better acceleration, you can kind of look in and see what people have done to specific cars and choose one that really fits what you're trying to do in a race or something else within the world of Forza. And then you just click it and then you download it and you just pay the credits that you would have normally paid to fine tune your car, but you're just downloading somebody else's specs. So they did all the work for you because they like doing that. And me, as someone who doesn't, I can just use that.
That's pretty cool. That's not the first time I've seen that in a racing game. I remember I was playing the I guess the Need for Speed reboot because the game was
Hmm.
just called Need for Speed, the one that came out in 2015, and they had a similar thing where you could just go through this huge library of cars online that other people have taken so much time to like meticulously customize or make really cool looking, and you could just download those. So that is pretty
Yeah.
awesome. Especially, yeah, it's like chances are somebody made a car that you think is cool, so it'd be easier just to download it than to sit there for hours and hours trying to come up with your own design. If like you said, you're not inclined to doing that. So Forza Horizon, is there an end game, or is just this game just open ended, and then you can just keep playing and playing and playing?
So they're kind of, but they keep content in so you can always keep playing stuff. But there is a main story. There are, I think, four different outposts that are essentially the four different types of main races: road, dirt, cross country, and street. They open up four outposts within the festival. And so each outpost has a bunch of different story missions that you do. And one of my favorite ones I think I've ever played in the Forza Horizon, it was in this one in particular. And essentially they put you in and make you play as a parade float in a Mexican heritage parade. So you are this big, huge float in a parade. I don't know exactly what you are, but I think they stack a bunch of crap on your car. So like you're like barely you're chugging along and like you could tell you're like use a lot of weight on your car. And essentially the goal is like you just ride through the festival, and then after the parade is over, they're like, "All right, time trial, you're going to go to this point on the map and then you're going to ramp. We don't need the float anymore. You're just going to ramp it off the ledge." And and so you time trial and bust it to this point, and then there's a ledge, and they're like, go over the ledge, and then they just do a slow motion of you just in this big, huge parade float, just flying through Mexico off this ramp. It was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done on that game.
Dang, that's clever.
Yeah, so they have a lot of like really creative story missions that you can do as you unlock stuff throughout the game by doing the regular races. I think there's like another one where I'm racing against a train, like I have to beat a train to a specific spot, or like there's some jet skiers that are like going through the water next to me and I have to beat them to a spot as well. So there's a lot of those type of things too. So yeah, really clever story modes that you can get done. But even after you're done with all that, there's still so much content in that game. More like, so they go into seasons. So Forza Horizon is always based on seasons. They actually, as the seasons change, or I guess as their seasonal content changes, the actual seasons in the game change. So you can tell, like within Mexico or even within England in the last one, when it's fall, spring, summer, whatnot, like the actual terrain changes, which is really cool. But within those those seasonals that they have, you can do specific races that they curate for those seasons to get special cars, and those just keep going throughout the life cycle of that Horizon game. So there's always content there. There's a ton of other side content too, from what I noted down. There's one thing I love called barn finds, and essentially it's like almost like a scavenger hunt. You just like they give you like a big portion of the map. They're like, there's a barn here. You need to find the barn and find this rare car that needs to be, that we need to go in and restore and give back to you. So if you find the car, they'll restore it and you'll get a new car based on finding the barn.
Interesting.
So
I think I saw like a trailer for that mode. So you're like finding a really rusted, like broke down version of a car. So they're restoring it from that state and giving it to you.
Yep, exactly.
That's cool.
Yep, and they'll like put a cutscene whenever you find the barn, and they'll open up the garage and like, whoa, look what we found. We'll get that back to you soon. Other than that, there's one other thing that I would like to note, or maybe a couple things. There's a battle royale mode within it, like an online battle royale mode. So you think like Fortnite battle royale, like shooting and with a certain amount of people that jump out of a parachute. But with Forza's battle royale, it's called the Eliminator, and essentially they just put you all onto a map or on portion of the Mexican map, and you just race a bunch of cars around. Essentially, you're just trying to stay in a zone that's shrinking, just like any other battle royale that happens. But instead of like shooting people to knock them out, you're racing against people to knock them out. So if you get close enough to somebody, you can honk at them, and it'll trigger a race to happen. And you have to beat the person to that point. And if you beat them to that point, the other person's out while the map is shrinking. And then also all around the map, there are car upgrades. So if you get to a spot and you find a car upgrade, you start with a really crappy Volkswagen Beetle that's like really old and beat up, but you can upgrade to a really fancy, fast car that you can just be like, all right, I can kick anybody's butt now if I race, and then try and hunt people out at that point. And so similar to upgrading guns, you can upgrade cars.
So when did you first jump into the Forza series? Like, have you played the motorsport games at all? And what was the first Horizon game that you tried?
So I have played Forza Motorsports games. I started there because those came out before any Horizon game came out, from my knowledge. But shout out to my buddy Swanee. He listens to the pod. I used to see him all the time playing. I think it was Forza Motorsports 2. I'd always see on his Xbox 360 he was playing that game late at night, and I'm like, I need to check one of these out. So I think it was maybe Forza Motorsport 3 that I actually got into it. So it was a little bit deeper into the series, but I started with Forza Motorsport 3, and then once the Horizon series came out, I started diving into that, and then I kind of just stuck with that and ditched the Motorsport series because I really liked the way that they would put the Horizon series in different portions of the world and open it up and really made like really beautiful worlds. You talked about graphics, like if you really want to show off like how good an Xbox Series X is or how good your PC specs are, Forza Horizon 5 is the most beautiful game I've ever played. Like, it is amazing what they do with that every time. Every time they release one of those, I'm just shocked at how good the graphics are. I'm like, it can't get any better than the last one. The last one was just fantastic. There's no way. And then I jump into the next one, and I'm like, holy crap, they did it again. So, yeah, overall, like, excellent game. They have some other co-op aspects. You can play all the races with your friends. Like, I race with my buddy Growie a lot and Swanee, and we team up against, like, CPUs and get races done that way. So, a lot of cool content, honestly. They do some partnering with some some other people, like they have a Lego expansion where they partnered with Lego and did a bunch of Lego races and whatnot, which is cool. And this most recent one, they partnered with Hot Wheels and they do a lot of Hot Wheels stuff. So I could talk about this forever. There's a ton of content. They always release so much good stuff, but highly recommend if you're looking for a racing game, as I did when the Need for Speed series went to crap.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, that's it. That's all I've been playing. I've been playing other stuff too, but it's the stuff we've already talked about that I need to finally finish, and maybe one day. But yeah. But what have you been playing, Mike?
So I know a couple episodes back, you highly recommended Signalis to me. You told me that you played it on Game Pass, you beat it, and that it's a really good indie survival horror game. And you also told me it was a throwback to old survival horror games, which right when you said that, my ears perked up. I'm like, man, you speaking my language. So I started that this week. It's actually the first game I'm playing on my new PC build that I just got. And it's kind of funny. I got this nice PC build, and the first thing I'm playing is an indie game that probably is barely even pushing it whatsoever. But it's nice, looking at some pretty pixelated graphics, blown up to 4K. Anyway, so I've been playing it on Game Pass on my new PC, but I did see that it was also released physically on PlayStation 4, which I was kind of surprised. I mean, at this point, I'm always surprised when games are still being released on PlayStation 4, because it's hanging in there. Yeah. And to me, that's a great console to collect for. And typically, in my experience, survival horror games become very collectible, highly sought after, and very expensive. So, fortunately, a lot of the great classic survival horror games I was able to pick up at decent prices when I started collecting retro games before they just went like insane. Like, I know Parasite Eve on the PlayStation 1, I mean, the cheapest you're going to get that for is like $200 now. And like, I lucked out and got that for like $30 a couple of years back. And same thing with like the original Silent Hill. All the Silent Hills are crazy expensive now. So fortunately, I picked all that stuff up early on. But anyway, I saw the Signalis was on sale on Amazon, and that might be the only person that's carrying it. But it was $30 for a physical copy of it. I'm like, sure, man, why not? I'll pick this up, have it in my collection. I figured I'd like it right off your recommendation, and sure enough, so far the game has been pretty good. It definitely hits that PlayStation 1 era survival horror, like nostalgia pleasure center in my brain.
Right.
And you can even go into the settings for the game and turn on tank controls if you want to. And it also has a CRT filter if you really want to get old school and act like you're playing it on an old tube television.
Yeah, I didn't know either of those existed when I was playing through it. But when you said that, I was like, wow, it's even more of a throwback than I told you it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible they could have added that in an update later on. So I do know they released an update that added some new areas inside the game. But anyway, I've been switching on the CRT filter on and off. Don't know if I really like it or not. Typically, when games have those, it's a nice to have, but I don't usually play like that. And for now, as much as I love tank controls, I'm just playing with the standard control scheme. But yeah, the graphics are beautiful. Like right off the bat, you know you're in for a different experience. Just a very, very vibey game. Like that's the best way I can put it. It's just weird, and the pixelated graphics just make it that much creepier and more like, I don't know, imaginative, I guess to say. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for great, detailed, realistic graphics, but sometimes when a game just has a very, very unique art style all of its own, it's okay to be a little more abstract with how things look. But I'm going to keep playing through it, definitely going to beat it, and I'll give more of my feedback on it once I finish it.
Yeah, I'm really interested in your full feedback once you get farther into it. It's the cutscenes for me that always they creeped me out in the best way. I don't know what it was, just about like you talk about like the art style of the game, but even the art style of those cutscenes, like the whole thing just creeped me out in the best way. And yeah, it was a great game, great experience.
Yeah, and did you say it was a real small team that made it?
I think it was only 2 or 3 people that made it. I'm almost certain.
Huh. The reason
Yeah,
I asked is because it's very detailed, and like those cutscenes that you mentioned, there's so much going on, and there's like those quick shots of just weird stuff that they inject into the cutscene. I'm just like, man, this must have taken forever to put together, all for just a few seconds of visuals.
Yeah, the developer is Rose Engine, and I believe that only consists of 2 people. Rose Engine. Yeah, it consists of 2 people from Germany.
Wow. I can't imagine how many hours they sunk into making that, just off what
Yeah.
I played so far. But
Yeah, they very impressive.
anyway, aside from that, I've gone back to Left 4 Dead 2. I was talking to my buddy Anthony, and he was like, I have this installed on my PC. Let's play it. So I'm like, all right. So it's a small game. I installed it in like only a couple of minutes, and we jumped right in. So for those that don't know, Left 4 Dead 2 came out, I want to say like, 2009. So it's a pretty old game. But in 2020, I think it was, there was a huge community-made update that Valve, the developer and publisher of Left 4 Dead, actually put into the game as an official update. So here we are 11 years later, and this game gets a giant content update. And that consisted of a lot of different levels, but I think they were mainly for like the versus mode and maybe some of I think they have like time trials or stuff like that. I don't know. I always only ever played the campaign. I probably only played the versus mode very, very briefly. But that update also included a 2-level campaign add-on. So you basically get a couple of new levels. So my buddy and I went through, played those new levels. They're pretty decent. They're not very long. I think we beat it in maybe, I don't know, 40, 45 minutes.
Okay.
And while we were playing on Steam, one of my buddies on my friends list on Steam just joined us. So I put it on a friends only match, and all of a sudden out of nowhere we had a third guy, and I was like, what the heck, man? I thought I put it on friends only. And I saw my other buddy had joined in, and he's like, man, I haven't played this in years. Thought I'd jump in and help you guys out.
That's nice.
So he joined in on the tail end of us beating that new campaign. So afterwards we went back and then played through another one of the missions. And man, this game holds up so well. You just get in this visceral zone where it's just you're laser focused. It's nonstop. It's actually kind of exhausting to play through this game. And it's just like close call after close call. But my buddy Anthony made the comment. He's like, there's not enough good new zombie games coming out. This is why we have to go back to a 10-year-old game just to get our zombie fix.
There's something about those Left 4 Dead games. I remember getting the first one and like playing it with my friends at my house for the first time. And when those zombies come at you and they just start flooding at you the first time, it was the scariest thing ever. Like I never experienced anything like that in a video game of physics where like a complete horde of zombies are chasing you. It was unlike anything like, you ever experienced in games.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that this was released on the Xbox 360 because this had to have been pushing that console to its limits. Just to have that many enemies on screen at once. But yeah, it was great. I recommend anybody that has not played that those new campaign levels to jump back into Left 4 Dead and check it out. And to sweeten the deal, right now, what is it, the Steam Spring Sale that's going on? The game is 99 cents right now. I mean, come on, man. They're practically giving the game away. I think at one point they actually did give the game away.
Probably.
Either Left 4 Dead 1 or Left 4 Dead 2 at one point Steam gave away for free. But anyway, if you don't already have it, you can get it for 99 cents. And it is well worth it. Because there's even an update that added in all the levels from Left 4 Dead 1. So if you get Left 4 Dead 2, you're getting the Left 4 Dead 1 levels, the Left 4 Dead 2 levels, plus like the free DLC they released, and this new community update they released. So you're getting a lot of an amazing game for 99 cents, man.
And especially on Steam, it's still a very popular game. Like my friends and I know you say didn't dive too much into the online, but my friends and I dove into the online when that community made content came out just to give it a try. And there's a ton of people still playing that game. It's crazy to think about, but the people that are playing that game still are very good at that game. So we did not fare very well in the online mode.
Yeah. All right, man. But that was my game jams this past week. So, moving over to some sadder news. I know lots of times we talk about online stores shutting down, servers shutting down, and games just disappearing from being available digitally. So the latest games to basically be removed from digital storefronts are a handful of old Battlefield games. So EA is delisting Battlefield Bad Company 1, Battlefield Bad Company 2, and Battlefield 1943 from all digital storefronts. And let's see here, when is that happening? April 28th. So if you don't already have those games, you've got about a month to pick them up. And after that, they're going to shut down the multiplayer servers, because these are largely multiplayer games, on December 8th of this year. Now, I've played all three of these games. I have so much nostalgia for the Battlefield Bad Company games, and I played Battlefield 1943, which I think you were telling me earlier. I barely remember this, but I think you were telling me that this was a Xbox 360, Xbox Live arcade game.
It was. I do remember buying it with Microsoft points, because Microsoft points was the currency for those arcade games at that point. And yeah, it was a strictly online game. The night that one was, I believe. So yeah, an Xbox Live arcade version of that. A lot of good memories on that one with friends. A really solid Battlefield game.
Yeah, I agree. It was good. I must have done the same thing because I had it on 360. I must have got it with Microsoft points. Yeah, I played that quite a bit. It was a very solid Battlefield game. And my favorites were always the ones that took place in World War II. So that was one of the World War II Battlefield games. And actually, I jumped into that game not that long ago. I think I was digging through some of my old 360 games, and I found a free 2-week trial of Xbox Live. So I redeemed it, and I'm like, all right, let me see what Xbox 360 games still have people playing it. And one of the first things I tried was Battlefield 1943, and I was pleasantly surprised that there was actually quite a few people still playing that. And that had to have been like, I don't know, 2018, 2019 when I jumped into that.
I think the Battlefield community as a whole are very upset with the state of Battlefield currently, so a lot of them are going back to the older games, because even some of my friends jumped into Battlefield 4, I think it was, which was more of the futuristic Battlefield. But there's a lot of people that are playing those older ones as compared to the newer ones that they've released lately.
Yeah. It's just like with Left 4 Dead 2. It's like if a great game is released, you could still go back to it and play it, and it's still going to be great. Battlefield Bad Company, I had the first one and second one on Xbox 360, and I played through both of their single-player campaigns, because out of all the Battlefield games, a lot of them are multiplayer only, but out of the ones that have had campaigns, the Bad Company ones are the best campaigns.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, the best. They really put some great story content in those compared to the other ones.
and the multiplayer was good. I played through that on Xbox 360, although I don't think it ran that well. But I did also pick up Bad Company 2 on Steam years ago, and I played quite a bit of the multiplayer on that. And it's surprising to me that Battlefield Bad Company 1 was never released on PC, especially considering Battlefield has always been known as a PC-first series. But yeah, you can only the second one was ever released on PC.
Huh, interesting.
And I don't think Battlefield 1943 was ever released on anything other than Xbox 360 and maybe PlayStation 3. I'm curious now.
Yeah, I am too.
1943.
I know with those Bad Company games too, in the single player, they really gave like the characters within those battle games a lot of like personality that they really haven't done in a lot of the other Battlefield storylines. Like you actually liked the characters and who they created and the personalities that they had.
Yeah. So Battlefield 1943, yeah, was only on Xbox 360 and only on PlayStation 3. So right now, surprisingly, at least on Steam anyway, Battlefield Bad Company 2 is not on sale. So I would think that they would do like a last hoorah to try to sell as many copies as they can. Right now, it's at the full price of $20. And then I forgot about this. There was a Vietnam DLC for Battlefield Bad Company 2 as well. I think I have that one as well. And then that's still selling for the full price of $15. Now, that's pricey. So basically, you want the whole Battlefield Bad Company 2 experience before it's gone. It's going to cost you $35. Oh, well, I guess you can get it as a bundle for $30. But anyway, you and I have talked about games being delisted and then all of a sudden unused Steam keys for that game, like unredeemed Steam keys, shoot up in value. So you got websites like g2a.com where people can sell keys, and I am almost expecting when this game gets shut down for those prices of those keys, or when this gets delisted, for the price of unused Steam keys to just skyrocket.
Yeah, I would agree. I was curious, and I looked at the EA Play app because I wanted to see a lot of the, if not all of the Battlefields are on Game Pass. So I was wondering which one, if those ones are on Game Pass at all. And the only one that I see that you can play on the EA app is Battlefield Bad Company 2. I don't see any of the other ones, so that'll be interesting when that goes away, if they sunset it from EA Play as well.
Yeah. And again, I want to say at one point, EA gave away Battlefield Bad Company 2 for free. Because now they have like EA Play or something, but before that, they had their Origin app, which was like their version of Steam. And every once in a while, they'd give away games for free. And I'm pretty sure one of the games I redeemed for free was Bad Company 2, even though I already had it on Steam.
You can never redeem it in too many places. You never know.
So I'll be giving this one last hoorah before it's gone forever. Especially the Vietnam expansion. I didn't play that very much.
Yeah, I might dive into that 1942 one, because I've always been feeling for some Battlefield play. I was going to try and jump into the newest one because I heard it was in a better place than when it launched, but maybe we'll just go back to 1942 instead.
Yeah. Man, I really, actually, out of all these, I really want to play 1943 one last time. So...
Oh, wait, is that the... I'm saying 1942. 1943 is the one that's sunsetting.
Yeah.
Or is it... Okay.
Man, Battlefield 1942, you're really bringing it back.
Yeah.
I haven't played that one in years and years and years. That was the very first Battlefield game.
Yeah, I'm going way too far back. There's so many years and games that they've come out with. It's hard to keep track sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Maybe I don't have an Xbox Series X. The last Xbox console I got was Xbox 360. So maybe I'll plunge a little bit of money to get like a month of Xbox Live Gold so I can play 1943 again. We'll see.
There you go.
All right. Anyway, rest in peace, Battlefield. Plenty of great memories. All right. So in some better news,
Oh yeah.
Mitch, you just told me this the other day. What is going on?
Yeah, one of my favorite games, actually, I've put in over 1,000 hours into the current game
Woo!
in its current form. Yes,
A
I am a
thousand
gamer at
hours?
heart.
Hold on. Stop the show, man. How many days is 1,000 hours? I really gotta know.
Let's see. How many days is 1,000 hours? That is 41 days.
Oh my god.
41
You
and a half
spent
days.
more than you spent like a month and a half in this game, nonstop, no sleep.
Yeah,
Holy crud.
if I'm playing competitive shooters nowadays, that is what my friends and I play. And I played it for years and it's still as addicting as the first day I played it. It's crazy what Valve did with this game. But
Wait, have
in
we
the
even
great
said what
news,
game we're talking about yet?
no, we have not. I was leaning toward that, but you got shocked by my 1,000 hours, which is totally understandable. But the game is Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And the announcement that they're having is they are coming out with what they're calling Counter-Strike 2 with a even more shockingly summer release date. This summer, they are coming out with Counter-Strike 2, which when they say Counter-Strike 2, it's going to be a free update to the Global Offensive game. So there's no buying the game again over, which is nice. It's just a free update. They're moving over to what they call their Source 2 engine. So basically just an engine overhaul, and they're adding, a much needed, like as good as this game is, they really haven't done much to it over the years to really bring it into the times of modern shooters. They just kind of have gone by the saying, if what's broke, don't fix it. Little bit of a mantra, but I think with the Valorant being released and challenging, the Counter-Strike game, that they're rolling this out this summer, and there's a lot of good stuff to talk about with it. So there was a limited play test, which I did watch. They did not. Oh, I had 1,000 hours in the game. I didn't even get an invite to the play test. Come on, guys. Like, I just wanted to play a little bit.
A little bit? Just a little bit?
Well, I mean, a lot of it. but but there were some big time streamers that got invited to the play test, so I was very curious. So I watched some Twitch streams just to see what was up and what was going on with it. They also released some videos on their site. So some of the fun things that they're bringing to this new Counter-Strike 2 is a visual overhaul to all maps. They already look good for, what they are, but there's some screenshots within, I think the article maybe, Mike, that you're looking at, they're really overhauling a lot of the stuff to make the maps look good. But I think the most important thing, or the coolest thing that they're adding, is what they call responsive smokes. And in the playtest, I've watched some people do some really cool things with these responsive smokes. And honestly, I can't really explain it. I think they've really just made up that word, like that term of responsive smokes. But I guess to try and explain it, it's a more realistic version of throwing a smoke, and it's more. It reacts as a smoke should, if that's the way to explain it. So there was a cool clip that I shared with my friends in our Discord where this guy threw a smoke, and it ballooned out, and he wanted to quickly maybe mess with some people, like throwing the smoke and then clearing the smoke. So he quickly throws a flashbang, and the flashbang blows and clears some of the smoke, and then he can see people for a quick second and just start spraying through where he just saw those people. And even when you're spraying through the smoke is dissipating, so you can start seeing people as you're blowing through the smoke. So a little more like reactive to the environment as well. So like if you throw a smoke like in a corner of some sort, like it's going to react and not like just like balloon through the wall or something that's non-realistic. It's pretty realistic on where the smoke will go depending on what corner or crevice or wherever you toss it. So for those who don't know, like throwing smoke grenades in Counter-Strike is probably one of the most important things in the game, aside from how accurate you can shoot, because smoke grenades really provide you the cover you need to go and either defend sites or even attack sites. So you're blocking the vision of another team so you can get to a spot before they do, or they don't notice you somewhere. So smokes are super important, and they know that. So they've really done a lot to make that a little more realistic, which is cool.
All right, so what's this thing it's saying? Tick rate no longer matters for moving, shooting, or throwing.
Yeah, so that was actually my next point. They're bumping it to 128 tick rate, which essentially hard to explain for me, but it makes it so that I guess there's no like maybe delay, a lot less delay of when you get shot or when you die compared to when somebody shoots you. So there's just a little like a little less delay, because there's sometimes, for instance, I guess I'll give an example of where like I think that I got behind a wall before this person shot me, but looking at a replay or whatnot, it doesn't show that, even though I think that I maybe on my screen I got behind that wall. But with the tick rate, there's a little delay, a slight delay between what happens with the gunshot and where you are as a person. So with the 128 tick compared to, I think it was like 64 tick, I think is what it isn't currently, it's just a little more fluid of gameplay and a little smoother of a experience.
I wonder what it was in the old Counter-Strike games, because I remember getting killed. And
yeah.
I'd be like, that didn't even make sense. What the heck?
Yeah.
There's
exactly,
so many,
just like that. Like, you don't think it makes sense. But yeah, I'm super excited for this. I'm a huge Counter-Strike fan, and I've been one for, not as long as you, but I've dove into Counter-Strike Global Offensive, as I said, for a lot of hours. So it's probably the game that I'm best at in the competitive scene, even though I'm 30 years old and not as good at competitive video games as I used to be. But if I have to pick one, that's it.
Man, I mean, Counter-Strike is just something so special. I originally started out playing the very first Counter-Strike years ago. I mean, definitely I was teenager, maybe not even, maybe like preteen. And it's just funny going back and looking at the graphics now and just how blocky and chunky they were, but it didn't matter. It was just the perfect storm of a competitive game. The gameplay loop was so addicting. The maps were just perfectly balanced.
Yes.
And it was just something you could jump in and just play for hours and hours and hours. And yeah, there was a lot of like unfair stuff in the old games, a lot of cheap shots and just, I think, glitches that people took advantage of. And I can't even say I was playing Counter-Strike from the very beginning. I think I jumped in at version 1.6, which might have been, as far as I know, was like the final version. But the game had been around as a mod to Half-Life even before that, and then Valve eventually released the mod as a full-fledged game. But man, it was so fun. And even when I started playing, it was a few years later. So it was showing its age. And then shortly after I'd gotten into it, there was all this hype around Counter-Strike Condition Zero, which was going to be the first sequel to Counter-Strike. And it was supposed to be this revolutionary jump. There was going to be a single-player campaign, which did not exist in the original Counter-Strike. And there was so much hype around it. And when the game finally released, it was barely different from the original game. It was like a slight graphical increase. I think it had maybe just a handful of extra maps. And the single player was never like actually finished. And they still released it with the game. I think the mode was called like Counter-Strike Deleted Scenes or something along those lines. But it was just like a half-baked single-player mode that was not good at all.
Right.
But it was still a great game in its own right because it still was Counter-Strike. Even though it wasn't much different from the original one, it's like you said, it's not broke, don't fix it. Like the formula is so perfect. And one thing that really sucked me into Counter-Strike Condition Zero is that's when I started discovering all these modded servers that would have custom maps. And that was my favorite. I would find servers that had just tons of custom maps in rotation. And Valve had a great server system where if you joined a server that had a map that you did not have, it would automatically download it to your computer. So while you're sitting there, it's loading up you're joining the map, it's loading the level, and then bam, now you've got all these custom maps just from playing these servers that have them. You don't have to actually go hunt them down on the internet and download them.
Right.
And there were so many clever custom maps. Like, it was ridiculous. The just never-ending imagination for these people making these maps. I remember there was a Walmart map I absolutely loved. There was like a McDonald's map. There's all kinds of just slightly modified versions of Dust and all the other classic maps. And then just really weird stuff. Like, there's like a nightclub one. And to even like way more abstract stuff. And there was maps where you would be shrunken down. So everything in the map would be huge. Like, you would be the size of a toy soldier running around this map. And they were huge. And those maps were like perfect for sniper nests. So even though they were cool, I did not like playing those ones because you're just getting sniped left and right. But man, this is really making me want to go back and play some Condition Zero. I don't know how populated the servers still are. But a lot of people did not like Condition Zero, and then they ended up going back to the original Counter-Strike, which I'm very curious to know how big the community is on both the original Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike Condition Zero today. But then Go ahead, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think to go back to the maps before we get too far away, it's crazy how they brought Dust 2 or a few of the other maps, like, they've brought them into every Counter-Strike along the way, and it's crazy just how great, like, when my friends get on, when we all play Counter-Strike together, we queue up the same 6 maps. It's just like, there's like 6 just great maps that they have that everybody plays the competitive multiplayer on in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And I played those for the 1,000 hours I played. I probably played those 6 maps over and over and over, but they just never get boring. Like, it's crazy how in most games I'm clamoring for a map pack or something. Like, I'm getting tired of these levels, but with Counter-Strike, I've just never gotten tired. It's just, there's just so much depth to each map. There's so much complexity, and there's always new stuff happening, even if it's the same exact map.
Yeah. It's just the most perfect multiplayer shooter maps ever. Oh, and also, speaking of the mods, the first time I'd ever played a gun game was in Counter-Strike mod. So, like, we start out with a real weak weapon, you get a kill, it gives you a better weapon, you get a kill, it gives you a better weapon, then when you die, you start back over, or you go back a weapon. That's a staple now. I mean, that's Call of Duty has implemented that in more modern iterations of Call of Duty, and a bunch of other games have done that. And the first time I ever played that was years ago as a mod for Counter-Strike. I don't know if that was the first game that was ever done in, but that was the first time I was exposed to it.
Very well could have been, honestly.
Is that in official mode now in Global Offensive?
I know, I haven't played Call of Duties in a long time, but I know Call of Duty, one of the Black Ops, they had a mode that was just called Gun Game.
Yeah.
And it was literally that.
Yeah.
And you'd queue up for that to play that exact thing where you kill somebody, you upgrade a weapon, you die, you go back one.
Yep. But anyway, after Condition Zero, when there was all the hype around Half-Life 2 and their new Source engine, well, for the time, they released Counter-Strike Source. And they had I don't know if it was I think it was an open beta. I don't know. Anyway, I was able to play it during the beta. I don't know if it was an open beta or like a closed beta. But I remember playing that. I remember the beta being kind of glitchy, but it was in an entertaining way. And when the beta came out, they only had, I think, one map. I think it was either Dust or Dust 2. And it didn't matter. People were just playing it on rotation nonstop every day, all day. And then finally, when the full game dropped, man, I loved that game. My PC could barely run it, but I just sunk hours and hours and hours and hours and hours into that. And I don't know, there's something about the original Source engine. It just has its own feel to it. And I went back and played Counter-Strike Source not too long ago, and it's just as fun as it ever was. And then eventually, by the time Global Offensive came out, I was drifting away to other games, kind of getting burnt out on Counter-Strike, having spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in it, like over the better part of a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to make time to hop into that one. So when this new game comes out, is that going to be it? Is Global Offensive going to be updated to it and you'll never be able to play the original version again?
Yeah, it's an update from Global Offensive to this. So yes, you'll never be able to play Global Offensive.
Okay, I'd really better get it in then before this update comes. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a better game all around, but still, it'd be nice to play the classic, what's eventually going to be known as classic Global Offensive a little while we still can.
Right. Yeah, looking at the people that have played it so far in their streams, they seem to be enjoying it a lot. Some cool concepts that they're doing, but they're still keeping the feel of Counter-Strike, which is what like you can change things cosmetically and introduce little things like the responsive smokes, as we've talked about, but I really, and all in all, you need to keep the bare bones of, or I guess, the bread and butter of Counter-Strike and the feel of it, and, don't drastically change things, but an engine update graphically and a few new features is definitely welcome because it's been a while.
Yeah. And in a bit of weirdness, somehow a while back, I stumbled across another Counter-Strike game that I never even knew existed. Wait, before I talk about that, I also played Counter-Strike a ton when it was ported to the original Xbox. Playing that on the original Xbox Live service.
I played Counter-Strike Global Offensive on the Xbox 360 arcade that they had.
I remember you saying that, which is so weird that Global Offensive was released on Xbox 360 and I think PlayStation 3.
It was before I'd ever touched it on PC, and honestly, I don't remember any of my time on that. I think me and my friend Swanee played quite a bit of it, but I can't imagine now, as much as I played on PC, playing that game with a controller. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. The original Xbox version was kind of wonky, but I don't know, it was still fun. Still had its own weird charm to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, after rattling off all those Call of Duty games, all those Counter-Strike games, as I was mentioning, I found another Counter-Strike game that I never knew existed a while back, and that is Counter-Strike 2D. And this is on Steam. It's a free-to-play game. Counter-Strike 2D is a free, fast-paced, top-down multiplayer shooter featuring many different game modes, a built-in map editor, and much more. And I never heard of this, never saw any promotion for it. It's developed and published by Unreal Software, so it's not even made by Valve. But I don't know.
It looks like it could even be like a phone game if it wanted to be.
Yeah. Actually, now that I'm taking a closer look at this, nowhere on it does it say Counter-Strike. It just says CS. So that could be why Valve has nothing to do with this. So even though it's obviously heavily inspired by Counter-Strike, it's not, I guess it's not officially a Counter-Strike game because they're not straight up calling it Counter-Strike.
I'm reading some of the reviews, and somebody just posted one yesterday and goes, Counter-Strike 2 looks a little more different than I thought it would.
Dang. Anyway, it's free to play. It's multiplayer. I think this is worth giving a try at some point.
Yeah, I think so, especially free to play and a different aspect of or a different look at the Counter-Strike game. Still a tactical shooter, but A little bit different with the 2D aspect.
Dang. Yeah, I did not realize that they carefully did not actually call it Counter-Strike.
These reviews are hilarious. Someone goes, I think if they made it into a first-person shooter, we will have a popular game for years to come.
Oh, dude, sometimes I can't stand Steam reviews, but sometimes they're worth a good laugh.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious. I mean, it's got good reviews.
It does, and I'm wondering if more people are going to play it now that, as a joke, now that Counter-Strike 2 has been announced. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, dude, the amount of reviews making jokes about the new Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike 2 looking real good right now. Honestly, Source 2 ain't bad. I love CSGO 2. Yeah, man.
Yeah, too good.
Anyway, man, you really got me wanting to play some Counter-Strike now.
Yeah, I'm gonna see what my buddies are doing after this, and we might go run some.
All right, everybody. Well, that's what we got for you on this episode. I know the previous episode we covered Mitch's Steam wish list, and we originally were going to plan on doing that this episode, but there's just too much good news going on, or not all good news. The Battlefield news isn't that great. But anyway, there's some other stuff we wanted to cover. We'll continue the wish list coverage where we cover my Steam wish list, which is embarrassingly massive. We'll cover that next episode. Anyway, if you made it to the end of this episode, thank you. On Spotify podcasts, if you could give us 5 stars, we'd greatly appreciate it. Help us shoot up through the stratosphere of all the 1,000,001 podcasts out there.
All right, who doesn't want to listen to two cousins talk about video games? Come
For
on.
real, man. Having said that, you can listen to us on Spotify podcasts. We're also on Apple Podcasts. We're also on YouTube. Mitch, where else are we at?
Yeah, you can follow us on all our social media accounts as well. Our Twitter is @HillsAreSilent. Our Instagram is Instagram.com/HillsAreSilent. Our TikTok is @TheHillsAreSilent Podcast. Been posting a little more on there, some funny stuff. And our YouTube is, again, The Hills Are Silent. If you have any questions or comments, game recommendations, feedback, critiques, just want to tell us that we're handsome, I don't know, anything, you can find us at our email inbox at hillsaresilent@gmail.com, and we'll catch you in the next episode.